The GovX show is supported by Forrester, helping government organisations perform at their best. Visit forrester.com to learn more.
Hi and welcome to another episode of the GovX show. I'm Tim Coulthard and my guest today is Jackie Smith from Sopra Steria, the government transformation experts. Today we're going to be looking at what it means for governments to be future ready, whether that's in terms of their skill sets, the cultural changes needed, and how they can make decisions in an agile way to respond to the fast moving world around them. Sopra Steria is our local government transformation stream partner, so it's great to have Jackie on to share her perspectives ahead of the sessions they're running at the event next week. We'll hear from Jackie now and then be along at the end to talk about the session specifically they're involved in and how you can sign up. In the meantime, here's Jackie. So Jackie, welcome to the GovX show.
Hello, thank you.
It's great to have you here. And before we get into talking about Sopra Steria and the future of government and exciting things like that, I guess try and find out a bit more about you. So I guess where does this, well, it's sunny here, this sunny lockdown day find you? Where are you riding out this second crack at it?
So I'm in Cumbernauld, which is in between Glasgow and Edinburgh. And actually it is sunny. I have just finished a walking meeting with a colleague where I walked around the duck pond at the bottom of the road for 15 minutes because my signal kept dropping in and out.
So these idyllic sort of tech-enabled outdoor spaces, they're only as good as your signal ultimately, which is a very modern...
Correct, yeah. So I now know where the line is between 3G and 4G.
Okay, there's usually like a sort of pavement street corner or something, so yes, it's good to know.
I've worked that out.
It's good to know the limits are very well defined, I suppose, and keeps you sort of on the ball. So we're going to talk a bit about your work. So I guess a good place to start would be to tell us actually what your role is at Sopra Steria and what its kind of key remit is.
So I've been with Sopra Steria 2.5 years now, and I head up public sector consulting in Scotland.
Okay.
So what does that actually mean? It means that I work with all kinds of public sector organisations in Scotland, and it's very much helping them to take all the policies that are coming out, all the bills that are coming out, and try and translate that into proper solutions and user-led services that people actually can use and want to use.
Okay, and is that typically sort of central level or local elements, or where does the remit fall?
We tend to do a lot of work with Scottish Government, but we also work with all the other public sector agencies. So there's 140 in Scotland. So we've done everything from Marine Scotland to agriculture and rural economy to Visit Scotland to create it. Anything with a Scotland in it, we tend to spend a lot of time with.
I like that. That's brand loyalty taken.
Absolutely.
That's great. I love that. That's great. So I guess if we look at sort of where we are now in 2020, the world has some unprecedented sort of challenges, I suppose.
Yeah.
How would you say government, public sector has coped given what's been thrown at it and the rest of the world?
I think we've had mixed. So we've had some areas have really, really stepped up well, and they've adapted quite quickly to suddenly being chucked to work from home, remote working. But then we've had other areas where they hadn't really done much in digital, and they hadn't really considered that they wouldn't be in an office 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And I think it's kind of highlighted probably the smaller agencies where they've not got the same budget and they've not got the same support, and all of a sudden they've been thrust into this kind of strange new world. But for me, I've been really impressed by the pace of change, the fact that they've started working together so much better. A lot of the barriers that were there because of the situation, they've had to get over them, and they've found workarounds, they've found new ways of doing things. So I've actually been really impressed at all the changes that have come through.
And that's interesting. We've heard that a couple of times. I suppose that it has created a sort of mandate for change and acceleration, by necessity, as you said. So we've heard that different kinds of agencies from public sector, from local governments, being able to adopt and adapt more quickly. So interesting to echoed again in your work. So when we look at some of the big ideas around transformation, one of the ones I know we're going to be talking to you about at the digital conference is around future ready government. And I guess, what does that mean to you, first of all? I mean, it sounds pretty good. It sounds pretty exciting, but maybe we could unpack that a bit and understand what it is.
I think for me, when people talk about future ready government, they tend to concentrate on the kind of the technology tools. So everybody's talking about using robotic process automation, making back offices slick, trying to use video conferencing, online Teams things. But actually the bit that really interests me at the moment is we've started to do all those kind of things. We've started to collaborate, and I'm really interested. We talk a lot about user-led design. So spending a lot of time with service users, understanding their needs, developing services that meet them. But policy doesn't do the same thing. Policy generally comes from the top down. It might have a consultation, which might be online and nobody knows about it. So for me, I'm really, really interested how they can take all the things we've learned this year and make government more local, more decision-making local, and start to involve local communities. That's the bit I'm kind of excited about at the moment.
I mean, that's interesting. The regional lockdown concept, jury's certainly out on that. But I guess you could make the observation that by allowing a sort of somewhat devolved decision-making or varied application of policy or rules, there's at least a sort of hint of a culture where that might be possible going forward. I mean, am I being overly optimistic, or do you think that might sort of create a slight change in perception around regional variations?
I think it probably does. I mean, in Scotland, we've had all sorts of different rules and regulations depending on which area you're in, and that's been going on for quite some time now. And it has also meant when people are working at home all the time, they've started to look at their own local communities rather than before they'd have worked in the big cities, Glasgow, Edinburgh, you know, they would have travelled a lot and they wouldn't have thought about what was in their backyard and local. And also the rural communities have really had to pull together. So I think that's a strength, and I think it's something that government needs to start to build on.
It's a really interesting way of describing people's sort of attitudes to who they are and where they're from. I mean, I take your point. I live in Essex, kind of fairly rural, but have commuted into London pre-COVID for 15 years. And so had this kind of dual personality where I was partly a sort of city worker,
City boy,
not quite a city dweller, but then a kind of, much more rurally focused, and therefore quite different tiers of government were impacting me on a daily basis. You know, TfL were the people getting me from A to B for large parts of it, but then around here it was much more around local authorities, education, service provision and stuff. So I guess people have recalibrated how they see public sector impact. Yeah, that's interesting. So let's look at this idea of change and understand it a bit more. So the world's changed, the world has been changing, the world always changes, you know, take your pick of those sort of descriptions. And so people and skills in public sector bodies need to do the same, or need to be able to respond accordingly. So do you see changes happening in terms of the skills and people that are needed in public sector organisations to perform and to adapt and grow?
I think obviously the focus has been on digital. All of a sudden we haven't got the physical world and we've had to switch a lot of things to digital. So trying to get people's digital skills up has been a key area, and it's been fascinating for me. For example, you know, people's grannies are on Zoom calls now at weekends. Who'd have thought that was ever possible? All of a sudden you phone your GP, no, I can't see you in person, but I'll do it over the phone. So we've kind of got to get the culture of citizens changed, but also internally changed. So for me, it's not just about digital skills, it's about developing empathy and the ability to do things in a different way, which some people find really, really difficult. So they're used to doing face-to-face, and all of a sudden you're saying to them, no, you've got to do it over the phone. It's a different way of handling those conversations. Also, I'm quite interested in the pace of change now. So I think in government, they've got to get far more agile. So they've got to be far more flexible and to be able to do things quickly and then change direction when they have to do that. And that's quite an interesting skill set as well to start to build.
Yeah, and then I suppose the bit that underpins that is if you've got, let's say you've got the right people, they've got the right capability and know-how, but you then need to create this environment around them in which they can make things happen, which we might call organizational culture or something along those lines. So where do we need to be with the sort of culture that underpins public sector in order for these new skills and these new people to be able to get results?
I think we've got to empower people far more. So there's always been a tendency that, decisions come from the top, but actually we've had to, as I was talking about, localization in a way. Now we've got local areas, local regions, they've got to have the power to make those decisions that suit that locality in that area and know that they're going to be backed up to do it. So it's not just a case of, oh, well, you made the wrong decision. No, actually, it might have been the right decision for that circumstance. So we need to get them trained a bit more to feel confident and capable to make those decisions. And I think also to feel far more comfortable about working with their stakeholders and their users to design things, not just to say, all right, that's the best process, that's the best approach, we'll roll it out and then deal with the backlash. Actually design it right from the start.
And I suppose echoes in that sort of cultural change of not necessarily private sector, but the kind of tech companies move fast, fail forward, move fast, break things. Feel like there's a bit more of that attitude needed in the public sector as well?
I think so, because there's always been a far greater risk because it's public money you're spending, you're worried you're spending it in the right way. Also, they've got fixed budgets, so they're really careful about, they have to be about how they want to spend money. But the situation we're in, we've proved you can move at pace. You can try things. Not everything works, but it's worth trying different approaches. So to me, I think this new kind of entrepreneurial spirit, I think we need to keep that going now and let it kind of thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously you're going to be joining us for the session on sort of future ready government when we come to GovX Digital in like a week and a half's time now. It's fast approaching. So what are you looking forward to sharing with the audience and maybe sort of getting back from them? What story have you got to tell, and why do you think that matters?
I think for me, it's taken the idea that during lockdown, we've had to find new ways to do things, and we've had to find far more collaborative ways to interact with users and other stakeholders. And for me, I've found that fascinating that we've gone from, oh, you have to have a face-to-face meeting with 15 people in the room to you can have anybody you like because it's on Zoom, it's on Teams. How do you take that capability and then engage it, like I was saying, in a local level? So don't only design services with your users at the centre, but think about how you can design your policies and how you can start to do localised decision making. So I'm kind of interested in all that, and I'd love to hear what other people think of that now in the circumstances we're in.
Yeah, I mean, the conversations we've been having with our speakers on the podcast, but also just sort of, offline, as it were, as well, seem to echo that. There is this sort of drive towards much more end-to-end thinking. Start with the user, start with the focus on what's the outcome for citizens that we want from this, and work back from there, as opposed to the machinery of government doing its normal thing, and then an outcome pops out the other end, which may do what you wanted or not. But it's interesting for you to take that pitch all the way up to policy level, because in organisations, maybe if you're at a particular local authority, end to end for them is the bit they can control. But actually, somebody needs to take end to end even further, which is policy making all the way down to outcomes. So yeah, it'd be good to explore that. We've got people from all kinds of different organisations joining us. Good. So yeah, I think there's going to be some really interesting idea sharing going on, which is exciting. And an unintentional segue there. I didn't mean to, I didn't do it, but in the spirit of sharing, we've been building what we're calling sort of virtual library in the run up to the event.
Yes.
We're very privileged to have lots of very interesting, clever, diverse people signing up for the event and speaking. So we're wondering what makes them tick, really, what inspires them, what informs them. And so we thought, well, let's find out, what are they reading, watching, enjoying, that is informing how they're thinking professionally or even outside of work. So is there anything you would kind of put on our virtual library for people? Oh, I've got the book there. Okay,
So this one is Low Down's Good Services, How to Design Services That Work. So there's been an awful lot of work in this area, but this is a really nice one because it's quite a small book. It's really concise, it's really packed, and in some cases you think, well, that's common sense, isn't it? But actually, to me, it's all about thinking about the user, thinking about the type of services you're designing, and making sure you're constantly updating them and you're constantly getting the right thing. So it's a quick, easy read, but for me, it's a good one. So I would recommend that one.
Great. Well, we'll add that to the virtual bookshelf. We'll put a link in the show notes for this episode as well, so people can click and have a look.
Cool.
Good to hear that it's a concise read, because my reading list is getting longer and longer. I'm getting all these recommendations.
I think in lockdown as well, it's been interesting. I've read far more than I would have done in the past. I think because you're not commuting all the time and you've actually got a bit more space to kind of explore different things.
Yeah, I don't think nobody I know is doing the learn a new language. You know, I don't know what realm of possibility that existed, especially if you've got kids. But reading some smart books and getting some good ideas, I think that's definitely part of the course. So that's a great one. We'll put that on the list. And we like to round the session off with a bit of a quick fire round, really. So the conference is built around streams that contain sort of big ideas and some of the key topics that kind of make up central and local government and public sector transformation. So I've got some key terms here that I want to sort of throw at you, and I'm wondering about your hot take or your sort of immediate reaction. You know, a couple of sentences. What does this mean to you? What's the essence of it? So if you're up for that, I will throw some topics at you and tell me what pops into your head first.
Okay.
All right. So we'll start with one close to your heart: transformation.
I think it's a vastly overused phrase, but actually for me at the moment, it's the pace of change. It's doing things differently, but doing them really, really quickly and failing fast if it doesn't work. So that's the bit of transformation, and just picking up new tools and technologies, playing with them, adapting them, moving forwards. And I think at the moment, I love the whole fact that people are looking at the physical world and trying to work out how to turn it into the virtual world. And there's some amazing examples of that, like Historic Environment Scotland. They've got all the monuments, a lot of the monuments in Scotland, physical properties. Nobody could visit them. So what did they do? They built 3D models online that you could go and explore a castle. How awesome is that?
That's fabulous. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Could be my virtual lockdown weekend taken care of. Excellent. We'll have to check that out, definitely. So next one is service excellence.
I think service excellence to me is just taking that user-centered approach, actually creating a service that does what the user needs it to do, and making sure that in some cases you might have different tailored services according to different audiences, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. I think that's a good thing.
Good stuff. And the next one is people and teams.
I think this one to me at the moment is all about social interaction. People are in lockdown. You haven't got the office environment, you haven't got the cup of coffee, the walk down the corridor, and it's trying to keep people's spirits up and their mental health up as well. So I think we've all exhausted Zoom quizzes, Zoom virtual drinks, Zoom murder mysteries, but I think we're now into a different level where people are exploring in companies things like, you know, in Sopra Steria we have a yoga session on a Thursday night. We have lots of things to try and get people to look at their mental and their physical health. Walking meetings now, which is a great laugh. Just that to me is all about keeping teams together when you're virtual.
Yeah, good stuff. I have to say, I haven't tried a Zoom murder mystery. The mind boggles. maybe I'll look it up before I commit to it. So the next topic is inclusion.
I think really now, especially more than ever, we've got to make sure we don't leave people behind. And the whole world suddenly had this dramatic shift to digital and online and video conferencing, but not everybody's comfortable with those kind of tools. And that's not just in citizens. Also, recently when I've been doing workshops with clients, there's quite a lot of our actual people who are in government who are not comfortable doing things online. They've never had to do it before. They're quiet. They don't want to speak up. They don't know how to react in a virtual setting. So for me, we've got to really think carefully about how we include as many people as we can and just take that into account, because otherwise we'll end up with an even more divided society. The ones that are comfortable with digital and the ones that just aren't.
Yeah, really, really good point. So the next one we've got is government data.
Ooh. I actually think there's a massive potential in government data, and I think it's only recently it's begun to unlock because of inter-department working and interagency working. They're suddenly realising, oh, you've got a data set over there, so if we combine that data set with the data set I've got, look at the insights we've got, look at the things we could actually work out. And to me, it's all about data sharing. How can we get that up and running and then find and explore uses for it? So that to me is like huge potential if we can crack it.
Absolutely. A government data swap meet sounds like something that could have real potential. I'm not sure how it would work, but yeah, I think you're right. It's not necessarily what you're sitting on, it's also what other organisations are sitting on as well. So yeah, lots of potential to unlock there. And then the last one is GovTech.
Well, the one that instantly springs to mind is legacy, which sounds horrendous, but a lot of agencies, a lot of government departments, they've got really old technology. A lot of it's siloed, a lot of it was on premise, and actually they don't have the money to take it all out and start again. So really, to me, GovTech is about building really slick front ends and things that can tap into all that data so that the focus is on delivering the right service rather than spending all the money trying to replace old legacy. So for me, it's trying to modernise the front end bits to make them slicker.
Good stuff. Okay, well, I've run out of things to grill you with. It's been a good whistle-stop run through the ideas behind getting government future ready, and we're going to obviously get into some more detail with public sector practitioners joining us as well for the session at the event. I'll do a shout out in my outro where I'll let people know exactly when and what time the session starts and how they can sign up, because obviously the more people we have there sharing their ideas, sharing their experiences from different agencies, the more everybody's going to learn together. So really important that we have a sort of diverse network joining us. But in the meantime, Jackie, we'll see you then, but just want to say thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'll see you later.
Bye-bye. So thanks again to Jackie Smith from Sopra Steria for joining me for the conversation today. As I mentioned at the beginning, Sopra Steria are the local government stream partner for GovX Digital 2020. Jackie's taking part in a really interesting session that's happening on getting government future ready. That's at 1 p.m. on the 17th of November. And joining Jackie on the panel discussion, we have a really diverse group of public sector organisations. So we have James Freed and Henrietta Mbia Bankas from Health Education England. We have Peter Tolland from the Digital Directorate at the Scottish Government. And we have Elizabeth Rodenheiser from Public Service Commission of Canada, bringing the international perspective. They all know what it means to have skills that make an organisation future ready in the public sector. So it's a really useful session for anybody looking to take their organisation forward in the future. Good news, it's free to register. Just follow the link in the show notes below and sign up. We'll be back soon with another episode as they come thick and fast in the build up to the event on the 17th to the 19th of November. But in the meantime, thanks for joining us and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.